Welcome everyone to today's session on maximizing learning with CK-12. I'm Katie, a member of the CK-12 team.
And I'm Lindsay, also a member of the CK-12 team. We'll be running today's webinar with the help of some very special guests who will be joining us throughout this hour.
If you have any questions for our guests, be sure to post those in the Q&A. So that's for either us or for any of our guests, and we'll be sure to kind of pass those along to them or answer them ourselves as we work our way through. We have some amazing teammates, Star and Ryan in particular, that are going to be answering many of those questions. And then, you know, there's tons and tons of you guys on today, so feel free to introduce yourself in that cafe and continue to build that community that we've been working on all summer long, or I guess the last few weeks that we've been working on this program. But make sure you hit all panelists and attendees as you're working your way through. So with that, let's begin. And I want to start by saying congratulations for those of you that are at the end of this whole program. So if you took all 11 or 7 to 11 sessions that you wanted to take in the first half that we offered them, you have made it. This is your last session. And if due to scheduling, you had to take this kind of earlier than the end of your program, please, continue to join our webinars, see what's up, and then just a little note that we're going to say probably a bunch of times here, the wrap up for this particular webinar should be done last. So hold off on any kind of assignment for this webinar until you've finished your whole program. So today we're going to cover the following topics. Just a recap of the program as we've been working on it, from pathways, requirements, what's happened so far, what's coming for those of us, or those of you guys joining us in July. And then the next part is the idea of paying it forward. So we've provided a bunch of resources and what can you do to kind of pass those forward. As Lindsay mentioned, we're going to have a bunch of special guests from a number of states across the US. So Cheryl Fogel, Ricky Scott, Dan Lawson, along with our co-founder, Nero Khosla. So stay tuned for things and comments from them. And then we'll wrap up with kind of the final form that if you are looking for documentation or certification for this program, what you would need to do to actually request that and get that taken care of. So just a recap of this program, we at the beginning kind of suggested 3 different pathways. We really said, here are the offerings from CK-12 and tried to group them to help you think about which ones you might want to take together that would be beneficial. So that first pathway was our content pathway. It was based on the idea of our flexbooks and our kind of content offerings, as well as the interactives that we put in there. The next pathway would be the intelligent pathway, and this was based on our intelligent system that backs our adaptive practice. And then the last pathway was the idea of customizing, and that's something that we're pretty big on here at CK-12, is customizing and making it exactly what you're looking for in your learning experience. And so in that regard, we said mix and match your sessions, take all of them if you want to take all of them, kind of whichever pathway you chose. And if you changed partway through, that was fine. If you added more sessions, that was fine. They were just that framework to get you started thinking about how you could approach CK-12.
So like Katie just explained, we're offering one CK-12 certified educator status this summer, regardless of the pathway. And to achieve that, here's how you meet the program requirements. Attend 7 live sessions this summer. So like Katie said, in the perfect world, we designed today's session to be kind of the culminating experience for your 7 sessions. If this is only session number 4 or 5 for you and you're coming back in July to do more sessions, that's okay too. We can go a little bit out of order, not a big deal. But the magic number for certified educator status is 7. And like we said, we understand that scheduling conflicts come up. You can substitute 1 live session for on-demand viewing. So if you need to watch one of our archived videos and complete the assignment attached to that to meet your 7 sessions, you can do that. We do need a record of all 7 assignments. Each session has an assignment, as you guys know. We usually think they take about 20 minutes, some a little more, some a little less. When you submit that assignment, we receive a record of it, and then you should also receive a record of it through Google Forms. For today's session, at the end, as always, we're going to be explaining your final assignment. And the final assignment for this session is that mandatory program documentation form. So we'll be going into details about that. And just how this works, you guys are going to submit your documentation form, and we on our end are able to verify the information you've submitted because we have records of your attendance in these webinars and we have records of the assignments completed. So you're going to tell us what you did, and we're going to verify that from our database. So we're excited that we've done 2 weeks of this brand new summer program. In the first 2 weeks of June, the little red numbers tell you how many times we ran these sessions, but we covered a wide range of things from all of the different pathways. And we're rolling out a fairly similar schedule for June. The numbers shift a little. July. But if you need to see a record of any of these sessions, the description, the assignments, the videos, the CK-12.org Certified 2017 page is the page to go to see a record of what's already happened. Now, for July, like I said, we've got all these sessions coming up again. So if you are still filling in some holes in your schedule to meet your 7 sessions, or if you're going above those 7 sessions and attending more, there's lots of opportunities for learning. You can register for any of these sessions at any time at ck12.org/jumpstart. So also, if you've enjoyed this program, please let others know that it's not too late to get involved. You guys have obviously gotten a head start, but people can join us in July and complete the whole program in those 2 weeks in July. There's still opportunities to do that. So make sure that you spread the word.
So speaking of July, we wanted to let you know that we've been selected as finalists for 3 categories for the annual Cody Awards in July, for Best Science Instructional Solution, Virtual Learning Solution, and Reference or Educational Resource. So that's just something that we're kind of excited to see, and we thought we'd share with you. So at this point, we're going to bring on the woman that started this whole thing and made that possible and have her share some of her thoughts. So Niru, can we have you join us?
Thank you, Katie. This is very exciting. I am really thrilled to see this program and so many people wanting to take part in this program. The response has been quite exciting. I have to say, the amount of involvement by teachers and wanting to learn how to use technology in new ways has really kind of energized all of us here. And of course, being recognized for our work always helps. And so I think I want to kind of take a moment to kind of remind you all that what we offered here is all about maximizing learning for students. What we do is we kind of offer you the basic structure for you to do your work. We seeded the content so you don't have to start from beginning. So if you think about this technology offering, it's all about thinking of it like a container. So if you think about a textbook or a flexbook, it's all about your container. And in that container, you can actually take the content in ways that suits you most. And you can do anything you want with it. We've added functionalities that will help you customize it to different students. So if you think about, if you're doing math, you need different equations for each for each student. We provided an editor, so not only do you can customize the content that you need to, but you can also customize it at the very atomic place, which is your equation. So you can give particular equations to each student. You can individualize this content for every student, or if it makes it easier, you can group your students by general capabilities in that particular content or domain or topic. And that helps you make it easier for yourself as you're starting out. So one of the things that I do want to point out to you, just in case, is that this offering isn't about us telling you how to use it or what to do with it. We want you to be creative about it. We want you to think about whatever your particular way of teaching or getting to your student is, whether it's project-based, it's competency-based, or flipped classroom, or blended classroom. It doesn't matter. We've offered a lot of functionality that can help you do that. You know, you can assign projects to your students, posting their work, encouraging to start using CK-12 as a portfolio for student work so they can actually start using it, showing this work elsewhere as well. When they go to college, or they need to show what they've done, or as they go to the next teacher every year, they can actually take their work with them, and the teacher next year can actually start thinking about how a student has been doing in the previous year. So if you think about it in not just like a very structured place to come to, I think you can get a lot more impact out of your teaching and for learning. So I would love to see, and I know the team here would also love to see, some really creative ways of people using this platform. And we built a lot of feedback for you. We built intelligence. We built ways for you to do your job easier. But the final request that I have for you is that you pay it forward. We love for you to encourage and share what you're doing with others. So whenever you do anything, we'd love it if you would actually publish it. And we encourage you to tell others about what you're doing. So if there are any issues, we are always here to help you. This team is, will answer questions directly, not only today, but later on too during the school year. You can reach out to support at CK-12 and keep in touch.
Great, thank you, Neeru. We're going to go ahead and Neeru's going to come back later on. She's going to be joined by all of our special guests. So if you have any of those questions, she's great at telling you about the philosophy of why she started CK-12 and what our mission is. Any questions that you might have, please type them in the Q&A window and we will make sure to ask her. But let me steal the screen back here and want to talk. I mean, we're all really thrilled around here in this office at the number of people who've participated. I was just reading the chat and a couple of you were congratulating each other on finishing your 11th session. That's amazing. So, I mean, going above and beyond, somebody was doing it from their beach vacation. We get it. You're teachers and you want, a summer break, and here you are learning. So that's awesome. When we started the program a couple of weeks ago, I think we were closer to 800, 900 participants, and that numbers continued to grow. And so right now we're well over 1,200 and from over 60 countries. So especially people in different time zones, where it doesn't even come close to matching your sleep schedule. Thank you so much for joining us. And we just hope you're going to continue to share this participation with others. Twitter, for you folks who are Twitter people, it's been awesome. I think these are my hearts for my screenshots I've loved reading all of your tweets. And I know that we've encouraged that throughout the program, and we're going to continue to do that. If you aren't following us or, haven't reached out to us, we love to hear from you. It's at CK-12 Foundation. Here's just another shot of all these amazing things. You hashtaggers, again, you can follow us at CK-12 Foundation or hashtag CK-12 Foundation. We do love hearing from you. So it's also a great place to network. If you got on and searched hashtag CK-12 Foundation, you can find all the people who've been talking about us throughout the summer. The other great place to go is our CK-12 Cafe. So in our introductory sessions, we ask that all of you go on to Jumpstart for Educators and introduce yourself or ask questions and respond to questions. And we want to keep this going all summer, all school year, all the time. We set up some state-specific forms based on our conversations with some of those districts and some of our school visits. If you want to set up a form for your state, just reach out, ask us, and that's something we can consider doing. We recently added a homeschool form based on some conversations we had with homeschoolers of wanting to collaborate. So keep the conversations going on here. Again, this is what you'll see when you go to Jumpstart for Educators. We've got 155 responses just to this one post. Start your own post, ask questions, answer questions. We love hearing from you. So I think now we're going to bring on our next special guest, who is not here in the office with us, but we're going to welcome Cheryl Fogel. So Cheryl, if you want to see if you can turn your camera and unmute yourself. Cheryl is the district science coach at the elementary level for the Polk County Public School District. So I can't hear her. We're going to see if we can get you unmuted here, and then we're going to ask her to introduce herself and give us some context for how her district works with CK-12. So let's see. All right, Cheryl, we can't hear you. We're trying to... Okay, Cheryl, we're going to try to troubleshoot this. We can't hear you. I don't think anybody can hear, right? You guys are always good about telling us in the chat window. Cheryl, we're gonna mute you. We're gonna turn your camera off, and we will come back to you later in the presentation. Sorry about that. I'm gonna share my screen again. I hate that technical difficulty. We'll bring her back on. You guys will get a chance to meet her. But right now, let's go on to the next topic that we have.
So as you were saying earlier, and we do promise we will come back, but for this next section, we just want to spend a few minutes talking about this idea of paying it forward. So we've gotten emails, comments throughout this whole summer program. Some of you guys have asked how you can say thank you to CK-12. Others just want to know how to share CK-12. So we wanted to give you some ideas for how you can pay that forward. Our mission is really to allow users to actively create and curate content. So participating in this and customizing a flexbook or learning about other resources was just that first step. And so our hope is that you'll become champions for us here. So the first way you can think about that is that idea of publishing your book. So if you are customizing a book as part of this program or elsewhere throughout the school year or already have, others have shared their work through their school pages in the Community Contributed tab. So maybe you can share yours and let others use the resources that you have created and keep building on them as you guys move forward. The next step is to get students using CK-12. So think beyond the book. Textbooks are just one way of learning. Sign your students up for CK-12 or have them create their own accounts and have students try out the interactives, download the practice app, and explore our concepts. The next thing is for you guys more than probably anything else is stay connected. Ask questions, post ideas, share resources. You can do that in the Jumpstart forum, email us or post on social media and tell us how you're using CK-12 and any successes you're having. So we love sharing tweets and highlighting professionals using CK-12 in the classroom. And then the next part is the idea of sharing CK-12 with others. So maybe speak to your other departments if you're working in a particular department or district. Share your use of CK-12 either in this program or in general. Run a workshop to train your colleagues. or volunteer to train others even outside your district. If you're interested in doing this more formally, we'll be talking about this more later in the presentation. And then the last idea is demonstrate what CK-12 can do. So we have heard so many stories about how it's changed classes and made students more engaged. So feel free to submit a case study for your school. Be a research school. Track your progress. Share the stats with us so we can help kind of explain to others how successful it has been in your school or district. Now, usually this is Lindsay's line for, that was a lot of information I just covered. But the basic idea of this is for you to stay connected and share your experiences with others, as well as our team here at CK-12.
I want to show you just a quick video clip. A couple months ago, I was in Utah, and we were talking to an awesome teacher named Tracy Paulson, and she gave us just this super enthusiastic interview on this topic of why it's important for teachers to, help other teachers, and this idea of being a champion for CK-12. So here's a quick soundbite.
I think we as teachers have a responsibility to, when we find something that's really going to impact our students to the better or impact our teaching and improve us as teachers, then I think we have the responsibility to share that. And I'm so excited for the opportunity to share this and be a champion for CK-12 and let other people know about what's going on and the opportunities and the resources available to help them evolve in their teaching, so that we can all become better together, so that we can all improve. That teachers everywhere can gain and benefit and grow, and by default then their students are also going to grow and become more self-independent driven learners with more opportunities to learn and to progress in their own way too.
So you can find this video and a bunch of our other videos on our testimonials page. So that's one thing that you can always check out if you're interested in kind of seeing CK-12 in action and hearing from people. And then the other piece kind of coming from there, as Tracy noted, we love having champions for CK-12. And this is kind of what I was hinting at that idea of paying it forward. So informally, we hope that you'll share these resources with others. For all of you doing the certification program, we will invite you to join us for a session late this summer or even in the fall to learn more about options for training others using CK-12, thinking about presenting at conferences, sharing your experience, and generally helping us spread the word. So if you're interested in this, there'll be an option to mark that in your final form, so please indicate that at that point in time. Now, since we just heard from Tracy in Utah, let's have Ricky Scott come on and tell us a bit more about what they did and are doing to customize and use CK-12 in their schools. So Ricky, are you there?
I think so.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of your experience in using CK-12?
Absolutely. So we started using CK-12 in Utah back, I think, in 2012, 13, when our state was interested in starting a statewide textbook that for science teachers that aligned to our state standards. Being a smaller state, we rarely had publishers that were willing to work with us and our teachers to find something that matched specifically our standards. We had people that tried but never really came close, and so it came down to a group of teachers getting together to get it started. We used CK-12 as one of the biggest resources for that. We were trying to find, well, where can we get OER type open educational resources and things like that for our textbooks. We went to CK-12 and found some outstanding resources. Now again, this was several years back, I guess we could say, and these books have become quite popular here in the state of Utah. They've only gotten better and better. And as CK-12 has improved with their resources, so have our books, as we've added links to their Plix and their online interactives and other resources that they have available. So we've really loved the partnership that we've been able to have with CK-12. And now, again, with our books, a lot of teachers are interested in having them in a physical format, and so a lot of teachers actually end up printing them. But we also have them available on the CK-12 website. We have teachers that download them and they can customize them and make them exactly what they want. So they can make their own book, again, kind of based off of the work that we have done. And again, like Tracy had said, and we love Tracy here in Utah, we are so excited about the work that CK-12 has done. And again, it only gets better as more and more teachers use it, and we see that in our books through the years.
Awesome. Thank you, Ricky, so much. And so for those of you guys joining us, we are going to have the other panelists introduce themselves before we bring you all together. So we're going to say goodbye for just a few minutes, and we'll see if we can get Cheryl back up here and she can introduce herself. Thanks.
All right, we're trying to see if Cheryl, if we thought we just had it working here. Can you start your video?
I can, no, it won't let me. It says you have to. Okay, there we go. Okay.
Ah, yay, okay. All right, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your district in CK-12.
Okay, thank you. Technical difficulties. We always have to be ready, right? My name is Cheryl Fogel, and I am a district science coach for the elementary schools in our district. And we have been using CK-12 for approximately 4 years. It started when it was adoption time for science, and our ELA department needed to adopt. And so anyway, our funds went to them. So we had to find an alternative source. And the curriculum specialist I worked with, who's a big part of CK-12, he does a lot with them, Dr. Hewling from our school district, actually found CK-12 and started looking into it as an open educational resource, and started creating books for our teachers for our schools. We have actually done it at the elementary level. So he took all of the information from the middle school textbooks and using Lexile Analyzer and everything, brought it down to, we have a 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade textbook that we utilize for our teachers. And we found lots of ways to utilize it. It's very dense material, so it obviously has to be scaffolded, but we found ways to help our teachers use it within the classroom. And it's been a wonderful resource for our district.
Fantastic. Thank you, Cheryl, for that introduction. We're going to let Dan introduce himself as well now. So we're going to let you kind of sign off for just a couple of minutes while he does his introduction, and then we'll bring you all back on with Niru to have a discussion and answer some of the questions that are coming in and some of the questions Niru has. So Dan, how are we doing? Let's have you start over again. I think we muted you from this end accidentally. Go ahead.
Okay. A lot of folks mute me, perhaps not accidentally. I'm a superintendent in Tennessee. I've been here for the last 21 years. We have started using CK-12 as our template for both content that we create and curate, and for content that has been created and curated by CK-12. We started in 2012 as the state of Tennessee shifted to a new set of social studies standards, and as we had no textbooks available that aligned with those standards. Since we're in a state that uses a value-added matrix to evaluate teachers, we thought it was critical to provide something that aligned directly with our standards and put that in our teachers' hands to change how they did business and change how they offered content to their students. We're about utilizing CK-12 for relevance. We believe and we know that incorporating the people, places, and things that our students know make that lesson more engaging, makes that work more relevant to them, and makes it something much easier for them to understand and incorporate in their everyday lives.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dan, for that introduction. Having been down in Tullahoma with you, it's great to see you back here as well. What we're going to do now is have Niru come on and lead a discussion with everyone. So we'll have kind of everyone join in. And every now and then, Lindsay and I might kind of interrupt for a second and share some of the questions coming in specifically for these panelists. So feel free to mark, if there's someone that you're asking a specific question for, add that to our Q&A, and we'll pass it along to them and they can answer it. So Niru, I'm going to let you kind of take over and lead this from here.
Well, friends, thank you so much again. It's exciting to kind of talked to some people that have been great champions. Dan, you've done a fabulous job of championing CK-12, as have you, Ricky, and Milt in Florida, Cheryl. So I've always wondered, how do we get this idea of offering a free service? Because in general, people, when they think about free, they think about couldn't be anything but garbage, right? So my commitment from day one has been that, we would provide exceptional content, quality content. And so I would love to hear from all of you. Dan, would you mind going first, telling me why would you use free content from CK-12? Just don't say it's quality, but give some examples.
As you know, we've been on this boat for some time. As we started our dialogue with CK-12, we did so by picking up the phone and calling California. It just did a cold call and started asking questions, because we truly thought there's got to be a sales pitch somewhere. There's got to be a catch somewhere. And we had looked a little bit at the content. And so we just made the phone call. And I sat down with an assistant superintendent. We're on the line. And at that time, Hitab was on the line walking through some of the programming details, some of the backdrop. And naively, we had a conversation here about we'd like to see them do some things differently, since we had a need for social studies. Maybe the challenge is they don't have the resources to make this happen. So I remember to this day sitting online, having this conversation, and then having my phone up, looking up CK-12's foundation, and then realizing that maybe the few $1,000s that we could throw at this wouldn't make a difference. This is really about a genuine move to incorporate the best math and science curricula available at no cost, with no geographic boundary. And I think that mindset is truly tremendous. And it's something that many of the 15,000 peers that I have can't get and understand. And they have a naive belief that if I don't spend for it, it can't be as good. And I would just implore them to take a look and compare the content to their standards.
Thank you. To this idea of CK-12 being free, anytime I go anywhere and I present, after I've said free for a number of times, the first question I get asked is it going to be free? Is it free? And I don't know. It baffles me. Yes, it is funded by my own family foundation. And I spend a lot of time in CK-12 because it's a passion project. And we have no idea of making any money from it. This is our gift. So Cheryl, I would love to hear from you. Why CK-12 free, maybe junky stuff?
One of the things is that we love about CK-12 is the fact that we're going to hopefully have an adoption year soon again for science, since we missed the last one. And our goal is to come into the 21st century, and using CK-12 as our online textbook, we would rather get technology in the hands of all students, tablets and that type of thing, so they have access to it and they can do everything on their tablet. So instead of buying textbooks, which are kind of a crutch for teachers, we'd rather use technology and offer that to our students. So that's what we're hoping to do. Now, whether it happens or not, but that's what we're pushing for, is using CK-12 as our online text resource, and then getting electronic devices. One of the things that we do with our students is we create smart applications for them to, with chunks of the textbook, and offer them, you know, in elementary ways to, you know, do a drag and drop and that type of thing to answer questions, and use graphic organizers in the text. So we've created, a lot of our teachers have created those things themselves to use with your textbook. So it's wonderful. We can change it immediately if there's an error, if we made an error in it or anything, and it's all vetted and it's excellent content.
Thank you, Cheryl. You know, some people keep asking me about publishers. What do they think about the publishers, about CK-12? I think I can't worry about it. So I just say, we're just going to do this for free. And, you know, the superintendents, like, you know, our star champions like Dan and Cheryl and, you know, Richard, you know, you guys have helped us by, you know, using it in the ways that you need to use it. And so we can't worry about publishers. We can't worry about what other people are saying. We just have to keep moving on and do what we have to do. Richard, I know you guys have been, you know, using CK-12. You were very early on in using CK-12 as a physical book, which has been part of our mission to make it accessible to everyone. You know, I'd love to talk to you, you know, for you to talk about why you did printed books from a free website.
So we had the benefit of having Dr. David Wiley here in our state. He has been a huge proponent and supporter of OER and well, open educational resource textbooks and resources in general, and it still continues to be. He really was the one that kind of got the party started, I could say. And then from there, it's simply just it's built its own momentum. Again, the idea of free is an interesting thing, right? I mean, because again, at the very beginning, when people aren't familiar with it, they do have that same concern. They go, well, if it's free, well, then how good can it be? But I could say that our printed books, in the last 5 years, I think we get up to, I don't know, tens of thousands of copies of teachers that are buying them. And again, the biggest thing about it is that all it takes is the teacher talk. Most of the people here are probably teachers. I was a teacher for 10 years. That's the best thing you get, is that word of mouth. And as soon as one teacher says, well, I love this resource, that's enough for the next one to want to use it as well. So yeah, when it all got started, I think we were all a little skeptical. I think what did help us, though, is that we know that these books, we didn't just pull them directly from CK-12. We were able to get some teachers in the same room. We were able to get them to actually make some changes and adjustments to have them match our standards. And again, kind of like what was said before, it's a work in progress. Every year it improves. We get it better and better. We look for the feedback from teachers. We have an open forum for teachers to kind of give feedback, and we try to incorporate that feedback in next year's book. And so, I mean, teachers love free too. So if there's quality and free involved, then you kind of have the double plus side, I guess.
Thanks, Ricky. I'm going to jump in for 1 second. We had a question from a user that said, is Utah using only CK-12 Flexbooks and not other resources from other sources? Or so maybe you can kind of answer that piece as you continue to talk.
Sure. So Utah is a local control state, meaning that we supply these books. It's a project that we've been doing for several years where we create a book that's created by Utah teachers that aligns to the standards. But again, it's not a required book. We don't have required curriculum here in the state. So it simply comes to the schools and the districts that choose to use it. So there are some schools that are choosing to use other resources, but our books have pretty much exclusively been based off of CK-12. There are some other sources that I think they've used as well, but I think the large majority of it has come from CK-12. At least for ours specifically. But again, there are teachers that use all kinds of other books from the publishers and other things.
Yeah, one of the most interesting things that Utah did, and you know, I know that all of you have done some amount of this, is that not only did you do the content, but you actually did you know, the structure of the book, the format of the book. You created this, you know, place where the students could write their own notes, and that they could actually own that book. They felt like there was ownership.
Right.
You know, maybe I'd love to hear from others, maybe, you know, Dan, maybe some of the stuff that you did for ownership of the book. would be great to hear about. But one more thing before we do that, I want to just also point out that particularly when David Wiley was at Utah, he published a paper which actually compared the usage of CK-12 flexbooks versus publishers' flexbooks, and that paper was published, and it showed that there was no downside to using CK-12 content. The results were really great. In fact, biology teacher from Utah got the President's Medal that year that she switched from the President Obama's medal for teaching. But Dan, and you're from Tullahoma, Tennessee. Someone's asking for your district, so.
Yeah, let me give you the folks a little perspective of where we see value in addition to free. We see value in addition to free in the fact that we are able to incorporate those local things, those local ideas, those local examples in each of our standards. Early on, one of the dialogues that we had with folks, especially our teachers, was that this particular segment doesn't match my standard, or this is not the way I would choose to teach this particular lesson. And to me, that was a perfect example of why we saw value in OER. Then if you've got a better way, if you've got a better example, let me show you how to edit this. Let me show you how to make this yours. And let me show you how to incorporate our students' work in this flexbook that we use. So we have a much greater sense of ownership in the content that is delivered, to include students, to include teachers, to include the work that they have done as a part of a class assignment. We started in our first generation using things like Khan Academy videos, and we have transitioned away from that to using students teaching their peers. Certainly they see someone that they know, they hear someone that they know, and we think that example is great in terms of utilizing the technology we have to become an actual contributor rather than just a consumer of the work. So that helps us a lot with the ownership, that helps us a lot with the growth of our students, and it helps us a lot with the buy-in that we can't get from any publishing house.
Cheryl, if you would give your, your version of your experience of what you found by using, how did you use books or CK-12 that really was worth it for your students and your teachers?
Yeah, so when we started not having a textbook, when we started using CK-12, we actually incorporated within our lessons. So we use the 5E instructional model, and everything's inquiry based. And so we use the text to support the learning and kind of help dispel misconceptions after we've done, hands-on based activities. So the teachers will maybe do them in centers, giving them, just printing off the pages they need of the textbooks that we've created to match our state standards. They might have a smartboard activity. They've created many, many different ways. A lot of teachers actually use the CK-12 site, utilizing our textbooks that were created, and create their own class and assign text to students, on computers. So our teachers keep finding new ways to utilize it. It was definitely an adjustment for them to go from, that crutch of that hardcover textbook to going to online, but they found it to be very beneficial. And if they catch errors, like I said, we can fix them, immediately. And so that they've really, really come to enjoy the text.
Thank you so much. By the way, one last couple of things that I want to say. There have been no litigations because we created this initial content on our site. We own the IP of the content. So you guys can do what you have to do. And there is no danger of this, this foundation disappearing, and resources will not be lost. We've been here for 10 years, and I'm planning on being here as long as we are used. So I'm going to pass it back to Lindsay because they have to do whatever else they want to do. So
whatever else we have to do. Yes, thank you, Neer. First of all, I don't know, since you were actively in that conversation, Neer, that you saw all the messages in the chat window and in the Q&A just saying thank you for your gift to education and for all that you and your family are doing to make all of this possible. So we'll make sure that Neer sees all the comments that you guys put in there. That is awesome. For now, I'm hoping that Dan and Cheryl and Ricky and Neeru will all stay on. You know, you guys who've been joining these webinars, you know that we always try to wrap up at the hour mark. And those of you who need to go can go at that time. But those of you who can stay on, we're going to bring our panelists back to keep answering questions. But right now, you know, a lot of you guys need that final information to know how you're becoming a certified educator. So let's just start. There were some questions since we never showed this screen for Dan. He is from the Tullahoma City School District in Tennessee. We were talking about Twitter earlier. For you Twitter people, hopefully Dan doesn't mind that I'm saying this, but at @1DanLawson, he is an active Twitter person, always talking about CK-12, so he might be a good one to follow. And we'll bring them all back on here shortly. But we've got some business to take care of first. Okay. So you guys who are wanting to get CK-12 certified, this assignment that I'm about to walk you through is the final documentation that you send us at the end of your 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 or 11 sessions. You're at least 7 sessions. You're going to submit this form to us so we know you intend to be CK-12 certified. So let's talk about this. This final form, this is your assignment for this session. We decided not to make you do an assignment and then fill out another form. So this form is your assignment for this final Maximizing Learning session. This final form is required to become a CK-12 certified educator. We do not know that you want to be CK-12 certified unless you fill out this form. And only complete this form at the end of your summer learning experience. So if this is only session 4 for you and you're coming back in July, keep this in mind that this is the final form. Don't forget any of this information, but don't send it to us yet. We only want one form when you are finished, okay? So I'm gonna go through that again, but those are the basic requirements for what's happening here. I want to walk you through this just to, you know, try to give you confidence in what this form looks like. You guys you've been answering Google Forms. This one's actually done in SurveyMonkey. I don't think it's going to make much of a difference to you, but it'll look a little bit different from the other things that you've been filling out. We'll put the tiny URL screen on in a minute, you know, the big unveiling of the actual URL, but to keep you guys all attentive on what's on my screen here, we're going to be asking you to give us your first and last name or middle name if desired. You can see the little star next to these questions. These are required questions. We are going to pull for your certificate the name that you type into these blanks. So we need you to capitalize it correctly. We need you to spell it correctly because we're going to print your certificate as you tell us to. So that's important. Your email address. Most of you have been using a primary email address, whether that's your personal or your school email address. You've probably been using an email address most of the time for our program to register for webinars, to attend webinars, and to submit assignments. So you're going to enter that email address in number 2. If you are one of these people who contact us occasionally and say that, hey, I've actually been using 2 emails. One time I registered with this email, the next time I registered with that email. Number 3 is an optional blank where you can tell us any other email address we should be looking for in our database that would show that you participated in a webinar or submitted an assignment. So hopefully that makes sense. We need at least 1 email from you, but if you have duplicate emails somewhere in our database, tell us about that. Most of you log on with an email address. If you happen to join us by phone, question 4 is where you give us your phone number so we can check your attendance for joining us by phone. All right, 1 through 4, I think pretty straightforward there. Number 5 is also required. And this is so we have some context for who you are. So your roles. Are you a teacher? Are you an administrator? Are you a principal? Are you a homeschool teacher? Tell us your role, the subject area, again, up to you kind of how you fill out these blanks, your school or district or both, and then your state or your country. So these are mandatory fields where you give us a little context. It helps us. We like to sort by country and by state and see where our users are from. So number 6 is another big one here. What documentation are you seeking from CK-12? So if you've done the 7 or more sessions, I assume that you're wanting full CK-12 certified educator status, which includes a certificate of participation for the webinars attended and work completed. So that is you if you are intending to be certified status. If you have only completed 3 sessions at the end of the summer or 4 sessions, that is awesome. And if we can give you a certificate of participation to document those hours, we want to do that. So if you are not becoming a certified educator, but we can still provide you a certificate of participation documenting hours for you, please check that box. If none of this applies to you, then check no documentation requested and you will not receive any proof of participation from us. All right, hopefully we're doing okay. So this next one, for us to cross-check your attendance in our database, we just ask that for each of these sessions, these are all of the sessions that we offer, you select whether you attended that session and whether or not you completed the assignment. So this one is pretty straightforward. You'll have to remember what you did, look back at your records. Did you attend? Did you submit assignment? We should have yes to 7 of these at least if you want to be a certified educator. This next one I think is probably an important one where if, again, hopefully you guys are asking in the Q&A and my teammates can jump in anytime if I need to explain something further here. But number 8, we need you to tell us how many hours you participated in this program. So number 8, about how many hours did it take you to complete this program, including the time for all webinars and all matching assignments. Please note that we will confirm this amount and use it in determining your documentation for this program.
So I'm going to jump in for a second, Lindsay. We're getting a lot of questions about whether or not this will be counted towards your particular district certification. And what we are providing for you is documentation of being a part of this program. Each school district level, sometimes state level, has different requirements. And so you can take that documentation to them and say, I did this extra programming, will you count this towards my hours? And they have to make that decision because those things change. And one person asked, I'm changing districts, will that count? You would want to talk to the district that you would be working with to see if they would count that towards there. So we're asking you to kind of put your hours that you put in here. We'll back those up based on the assignments you did and the time that you spent in webinars. And then from there, you get to take that documentation to your district and they will determine what happens next.
Yeah, so that's number 8 of you tell us, you type in the number of hours, and we're going to print that on your certificate so that you can take that to whoever you need to take that to, and hope that they give you, if it's your, continuing education units or whatever it's called in your district, hopefully you can get credit for your attendance. Okay, we'll see how many more questions come in on that piece. I'm going to keep going here. Number 9, which pathway did you complete? We're curious. This does not matter as far as your certificate or certified educator status. So an option here is I don't remember. That's fine. Okay, so this is just for us. We're curious of if you were on the content intelligence, you built your own, or you weren't on a pathway at all. That one's pretty easy. Are you interested in learning more about being a champion for CK-12? When the dust kind of settles on this summer program, we're going to have that first group of educators who are CK-12 certified. And we would like to continue to talk to you guys. It's going to be a really exciting group and a really exciting partnership with us and you guys moving forward with CK-12. So we just want to make sure that, hopefully you're going to check yes, that you're interested in continuing to hear from us about more opportunities to move forward with CK-12. Oh, Katie's going to jump in.
So we just had a question about that pathway. It's a general CK-12 certified educator piece. So if you switch pathways in between, that's not a problem in there. And it won't be reflected as long as you completed the requirements of the program.
Okay. So number 11, here's where we get into just some rankings. That's feedback that helps us. So we are asking you on this, awesome scale of poor, fair, average, good, and excellent. How was the content of the webinars? The materials that we prepared, the presentations, we're working on scripts, we're working on slides, we're working on presentations. How did we do? The CK-12 moderators and instructors, on this, poor to excellent scale, how would you rate all of our team members who've assisted with that? Our assignments, were we meeting your needs as far as assignments go? And then how did we do with support, whether that's during Q&As, during webinars, emails, office hours? Did you feel supported during this program? So please answer those. And then on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely would you be to recommend this training to a friend or a colleague? Also pretty easy there. So I think these are, you guys got these covered. These are straightforward. Katie, more questions.
So I know this is kind of slightly further up, the question about marking attendance. Within that attendance, you have options, and you can't see that from the screen, but you have options kind of for whether or not you attended it live, you watched a recording. When you start getting into that form, you'll see kind of the different options within here for those drop-down pieces. So, whatever that looks like for any particular session, you can kind of adjust accordingly. Yes.
You will tell us if you attended live where it should match our database, or you'll tell us if it's that one session you watched on demand. That's the drop-down menu there. Okay, so we're reaching kind of the end here where these are the open-ended fields. You can see that we still are requiring 13 and 14. 15 is optional, but we would love to hear what the best part, your favorite part, an encouraging part, an exciting part of this program was. What suggestions do you have for improving this program? We mean it. We want to know. This is year 1 of this program. We're partway through this summer. We want to know, what can we be doing to improve this experience for you? And then 15 is your place to put any other comments that you have about this program that we aren't specifically asking you about. And then this is the last bit here. It goes to 18. If you would like to share a link to any work you created on CK-12 this summer, please include 1 or more here. That is an optional link, but we would like to see if you guys have been working hard on a Flexbook, or you've been working on groups, anything that has a link that you want to share with us, we'd love to see it. So please consider putting your links there. 17 is, would you be willing to have members of the CK-12 team contact you to discuss your experiences with using CK-12? We're not really in the cold calling business, so we don't want to use your contact information and just blindly phone you up one day. So if you are open to us contacting you, like we said, we've been traveling around the country, we've been visiting different schools, we've been talking to our users. That's how we improve. That's how we see how our tools are being used and where we should be going next. So hopefully you guys will all say yes to that. I don't know what potentially means. That sounds awfully fickle, but yes, no, maybe someday. And then lastly, 18 is a box. You guys have seen our new testimonials page that we've launched. We would love to add more testimonials to it. So this is also optional, but if you are willing to be featured, go ahead and type what your comment is in that box that you would like to appear on the testimonials page. So you can see that it's kind of half very important required information for this program for you to get the documentation you need, and then half kind of feedback for us that we can use to improve.
So we will continue to answer questions in a minute, but we're just going to wrap up and give you that URL. We will be posting it shortly on our program page. So you'll see that within the Maximizing session. So you can start accessing it shortly after today's webinar. You can always find that and the rest of the resources on our CK-12 Certified Educator page. So that is ck12.org/certified educator. Oh, and it looks like I missed one little piece in terms of when you're going to get this. So when you receive your digital badge and PDF certificate, our program wraps up kind of late July, and we'll give you a week or so to kind of turn in the last little pieces, and we'll pull everything together and get those certificates out to you. So you can expect that the first week of August. If you have an issue in timing for some reason, let us know, and we'll go from there. And then, once again, you can find all of those resources and information on our Certified 2017 page. So I think with that, what we're going to do is we're going to say thank you for joining today's session. And then I'm going to start answering some other nitty-gritty little questions that came in about this form first, and we're going to turn it over and pass it back to some of the broader questions for our panelists. So if you are done and you are signing off, congratulations, and thank you so much for joining us. And if you're sticking around, stick around and get some more questions answered. So one of the big questions that came in was about timing that you're putting in there. You don't need to put an exact time for your assignments. We were just trying to get an estimated time. So go ahead and kind of mark that in there. We'll take an average of what people are saying for that. So it's not an exact science. So just factor in the fact that you spent time in addition to the webinars doing those assignments. And so I think what I want to do is go through kind of a couple big things and make sure we get questions for our panelists taken care of so that they are free to go. And then any of the kind of technical questions about CK-12 we can continue to work with. But there was one question asked super long ago that I want to cover, and that's the schedule for releasing college level books. So we have 2 math and 1 science book coming out very, very, very shortly. So probably by the next time I have a webinar, you will get to see some of those. So definitely check that out. So that's one piece that we're working with. And then I'm just going to talk about resources. So Cheryl is in Polk County. The resources for Florida can be found under that on the science, like the science resources there under the schools page for Florida. So check that out. And similarly, any resources for Tullahoma are under their page. For the state of Utah, there's not necessarily a particular district, so there is not a page there, but maybe we can talk to Ricky about what that might look like to see some of those resources in the future. But yeah, I think at this point in time, let's pull them on. We have some specific questions. So Dan, if you are still there, we had a question about kind of the algebra flexbook. Someone from Blount County, which I think is also in Tennessee, saw your flexbook, and they were asking if it was written by just one person or a collaboration. So maybe you could talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, let me talk just process for a second. We have a requirement to have a differentiated pay plan in the state of Tennessee. So one of the things that we use in that plan is payment for our creators and curators. The Algebra 1 book that we're referencing had 2 creator curators who worked on that. And typically we made the assignment in May, the year prior to the time that the school is going to implement that book. So typically the teachers had 13 months or so to create and curate the content. My technology department provided some assistance. We provided a bit of release time. And for us, the kind of the running dialogue that we have on the technological skills necessary to do the work is we put our folks through an extensive program that some of you may have heard of. It's called Facebook. And once they can run Facebook, they have the skills to do most of what it takes to edit, create, and curate a flexbook in CK-12's format.
Thanks, Dan.
That's a great line, Dan. We're going to steal that one. I like that. We put them through the training of Facebook. That's perfect.
It's OER, so it's common. Just attribute it and you're fine.
So thanks, Dan. Maybe we'll take a question for Cheryl at this point in time. So Cheryl, are you still there? And if so, we had a question regarding the demographics of Polk County. So whether they're similar to many of the school districts, that might help some people as they're kind of thinking about how to incorporate pieces.
Yes. I'm sorry, can you say the question again? I was trying to get my technical things working.
No worries. I'm glad that worked. They were looking for some of the demographics for Polk County, and then also any, like, the kind of span of grades and subjects that Polk County is using CK-12 for.
Yes, so currently in Polk County, we have for elementary grades 3, 4, and 5. Then we have middle school 6, 7, 8 for their comprehensive science aligned to the state standards, the next gen Sunshine State standards. And we also have earth space science. I know they might be working on some additional ones, but with there being so many different, you know, content areas at the high school level, they currently have books that have been adopted, and as that changes, they're going to eventually switch them all over. Demographics. Polk County is one of the largest counties in the state of Florida. It's very poor. It's centrally located. A lot of migrant students, a lot of movement within the county and outside of the county. So all our students are on free breakfast and lunch. So very, very high ESOL population and very, very low income.
Awesome. Thank you so much there. That was kind of great to get to just hear a little bit more about that piece. And maybe we can kind of switch over to Ricky and go back to that question about kind of access for the resources. Or for any of the Utah resources that your teachers are using, are they also published on CK-12, or are they currently not published at this time?
No, actually they are. So I recently on the chat, I don't know, I have to scroll now, this thing goes like crazy, but I put a link to our books on CK12.org. So there, I put a link in the chat so people can get to it.
Perfect, thank you.
Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I just, not being a district, it wasn't kind of clear if those were all those pieces in that part.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thanks. And then we have kind of a couple of program questions. So is there a printable checklist of what needs to be turned in? You need to turn in the assignment for any session you work with and this final form. Someone said they were having difficulty accessing it. We'll test it again afterward and add it to that page. So we'll get that up and running. And then we had some questions about communities that use CK-12 that give the ACT Aspire assessment test. So I don't know if you guys can talk about this. I always generally tell people to post those questions on the forum and have other users tell about their experiences. But if any of you guys have districts that are doing that, that would be great to hear about for a minute.
So here in Utah, we will be using the ACT Aspire test sooner or later. And I've actually had teachers ask me about that. Do our books align to that test? And my response has been, for the most part, that we don't align our books to a test, we align our books to the standards. So our books are simply aligned to what the state standards are, and our hope is that the ACT Aspire does a good job to align to our standards. So so that's really the point, is we're here to support the standards and support students in learning the standards.
Awesome, thank you so much. I don't know if Dan and Cheryl have anything to add to that, or that was a perfect answer and we're good to go from that part.
Once again, just like Ricky, we're aligned very much to standards, not an assessment, because our assessment seems to change annually, and our standards as of yet haven't gone quite that far.
Great, thanks. Cheryl, did you have anything to add, or that's kind of a similar response there?
Yeah, absolutely. Ours are all aligned to the standards, and we were very meticulous in using the content available on CK-12 and tweaking it to meet our needs, and they're very much aligned to state standards. And again, not to the assessment, I agree with Dan, it's definitely standards-based so that, you know, it goes to the depth, the textbook goes to the depth of the standard, which is very important.
Thanks. We have one question for you, Cheryl, too, that says, how many students are in Polk County and an estimate of the savings on textbooks? And if you don't know that, I know that we can get that information from some of the other people that we've worked with. So feel free to email us and we can pass along those questions.
Okay.
But if you do know, go for it.
I'm not really, I think there's a, honestly, I want to say about, I don't know if I should even say. I'm not sure how many students we have. I want to say approximately 10,000. The savings in textbooks, ooh, I know it's very, very high, and that's one of the reasons we're pushing for devices for students to have in their hands. and so they can, you know, have a device, and everybody has a device in their hands, and we don't have that right now within our district. So that's why we're pushing. That's why we promote CK-12, so we can use the funds to buy electronic devices, so all students have access to that resource. So I think I'd have to get that information and email it to you.
Actually, Cheryl, thank you so much for bringing this up. It's not just the money part and buying devices part of it that, you know, is the savings that we offer. You know, there's a deeper motivation here. You know, with CK-12 and the kind of offerings we offer, we do manage to give you know, learning in many, many ways. So it's not just the flex books that we are offering. We're actually offering different ways to learn, immersing yourselves in the content, because we provide so many different ways of learning. We have interactivity where we can actually learn and see how the students are really doing, so that it's not just about a standardized test with multiple choice questions or true and false questions. It transcends all that. It's more about, you know, this is why at every place we've kind of given a place for you to upload your own creations. And those creations can also be about student creations. So I highly recommend people go into the website and find out different ways that they can encourage student expression, student creation. It doesn't all have to be with metal and wood, but it can be the new media that's being created. No longer new, actually. It's about the other medias that people now have access to, that we have to ensure that our students, our children, can actually be part of the you know, society and take part in job creation and job getting. So I highly recommend people to think through, not just through the Flexbook portion of it, but really go use CK-12 with the other things that we've actually provided you.
Niru, a question for you. Talking about districts who are reviewing textbooks for adoption, we did a session on adopting CK-12 curriculum, but they're asking, you know, what is CK-12's involvement at that level? Is anybody willing to speak with the district to showcase CK-12? Any advice to districts who are thinking about going with CK-12?
So yes, we are actually, you know, part of it is to be part of the future of you know, districts and the education. So we'll help when, if you reach out to us, if you're considering us, reach out to us and we'll help you out. You know, the thing is about adoption is that the digital world, you may have to change your adoption processes and requirements a little bit more than just a physical textbook. So, you know, those might be some things. If there are, you know, I'd love Dan to get on, you know, kind of create a committee that might think about what's the future of adoption with digital work. And so, you know, I'd love to talk about to any district who's trying to adopt something like CK-12, and I'd be open to talking to anyone. Just reach out to us. You know, this helps us create a future that, you know, your questions help us to create a future that will help us make it easy for people like, you know, people who are in this, you know, in this webinar, to think about how might we create a better way, easier way to adopt CK-12 kind of offerings.
So we have several questions in the chat and in the Q&A about technology. You know, how are you pushing devices, which we can ask our panel here in a second. You know, what does computer, you know, devices look like in your classroom? And then a comment in the chat about, you know, how we need technology to access any of that. And let me just kick this off by saying, again, I've been in a lot of classrooms using CK-12 the past 6 months or so, gathering some testimonials, and I've seen it all. There are classes that definitely have one-to-one devices, and that makes everything just easy access for the full webinar, for the full resources CK-12 has to offer. I've been in classrooms where the teacher tells the students to pull out their cell phones, and they are doing CK-12 work on their cell phones. So that is working for some schools. Some schools, like, Ricky, who was on earlier, said that they've got schools in Utah who are printing sections of the book or printing whole books because they don't have the devices right now. So I'm going to let our panelists respond, but technology really isn't a barrier to entry for using some of our resources. There are obviously some restrictions with some of our more interactive pieces that require a larger screen for them to work properly, but there's plenty of awesome CK-12 content that can be used anyhow, anywhere, like we advertise. So who wants to go first? Raise your hand. Who do we want? Dan, Cheryl, Niru? Any of you guys want to talk about devices?
Let our panelists answer this one first.
So one of the things is we don't actually have, every classroom doesn't have devices at this time, and I don't know if that's going to change. Hopefully it will at some point. But what we do is the teachers will print off only what they need, or they'll assign it online at a computer center. I mean, they find ways to work around using the text, and they create, like I said, smart board presentations where they can actually interact with the text and that type of thing. So, being creative when you don't always have the electronic devices available is how our teachers have, figured out ways to do that. And we've actually had trainings on what teachers have done to utilize CK-12 text in a way, because a lot of teachers initially were kind of like, oh, this is too much, how do I do this? And so we've kind of broken that barrier down by showing them, alternative ways to utilize it without having enough devices for all students. So we just print off what we need. We don't actually encourage them to print off the entire book, because we are able to make changes immediately, and those changes wouldn't be live if they were printed. So we actually discourage that. So we encourage them to use it online.
And for us, we've taken a bit of a different approach. We have elected to go to a one-to-one basis on devices. Like Cheryl, we don't share the entire book. Most of our teachers share through an LMS or through Google Classroom. We have found that an awful lot of our neighbors are using a Kinko's model. They are using exactly the same content and creating a $7 or $8 textbook rather than an $80 or $90 textbook. And we're just blessed that we have the devices. But I would want folks to hear clearly that a device is a luxury that enhances functionality, but it's certainly not a requirement. And I also think that don't miss out on Nehru's discussion earlier about the value of the intelligent materials built in. Because as we started looking at CK-12 several years ago, in its infancy, this was about a flexbook program. And as we've looked at the modalities that have been added, those modalities are maximized with the devices. It's not a requirement, but it's certainly a wonderful asset if you can make the device available for your kids.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, let me throw out another comment about devices, and this was one of our first elements that we focused on. We didn't have a requirement to go with any specific platform, which was terribly important for us. We didn't want to be in a world that said you have to be in a Windows environment, you have to be in an iOS environment, because when we started, Chrome wasn't even a discussion. Now we're, for the most part, a Chrome district for our kids. And had we been in some environment that required us to go with a platform-specific delivery, we wouldn't have had the ability to enjoy what we have right now.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Dan. I think the last question kind of floating in this Q&A is the idea of being a champion for CK-12. And really, that's just kind of thinking about ways that you can pay it forward and spread the word. I know I've done workshops with Dan and his team down in Tullahoma and elsewhere, and they do a great job kind of sharing their experience and, having Cheryl and Ricky on and things like that, kind of talking about your experience is what we're talking about when we're saying, champion CK-12 and the idea of resources that are available to students that aren't, there's no barrier for access, as well as also the idea of that interactive and, kind of different choices for learning as you work your way through.
I guess my last word is, this is a project of passion. I can't bear to even think about a single student, young child, being left out of access or being able to live up to their potential. We could have easily done this just for students. But I think, young kids need a structure of why they're learning something. Why is velocity and acceleration kind of related? And how should you learn this stuff? So young kids don't know that, or young children don't know that, young learners don't know that. So this is why we made a very conscious effort to make this project about the teacher and the student. Because without one or the other, you can't have, at least for young kids, you can't really have learning happen in a very, logical way. So for us, this has been something that we've been, we had a vision. There's a vision document and mission document on our website. Look, we can post the link for that for you. But just looking at where we've come on that mission document, from offering Flexbooks on to giving you the ability to customize, aligning it to curriculum, not to standardized testing. Our adapted practice is all about what you know without adding any pressure. We are actually more about students immersing themselves in learning in different ways that, you can learn anything. And so we provide everything we can, from interactive elements to the ability to do something, to watch videos, to read something. We want to give you everything a student or a teacher might need to teach and learn. So I'm hoping that, this becomes a model of teaching and learning, rather than just trying to buy somebody else's version of what you should do and giving you a scripted thing so that, you're no longer in control of what you're doing. So a teacher has to experiment, has to fail, has to succeed by doing it themselves, as much as a learner has to do by doing it themselves, failing at it and succeeding at it and doing it in different ways and immersing themselves. So the model applies to both the teacher and the student. So I'm hoping that this mission continues and goes a long way. And the only way we can do that is with your involvement. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Niru. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Dan. I think Ricky's already left us. That was, a really great session today. I'm so pleased that all of you have joined us. We're going to take a week off here to celebrate the 4th of July in the US. There aren't going to be any program things happening next week. And then we are back in July for 2 more weeks of sessions. So we are going to sign off this webinar, but hopefully we're going to see some of you back for more learning here in another week or so. All right. Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.